Hi guys, welcome to math class. We're actually gonna do like one of my all-time favorite topics today, which makes me a little sad that I'm not with you in person. This is the day that you get to see why perfect square trinomials are so super cool. So I hope I lost my pen. I hope that you enjoy this day as much as I found it, as much as I do. It's such a cool method, and it really just makes me excited to share this beautiful method with you today. So, without further ado, because I could talk for a long time just saying hi to you guys, this is going to be starting on page 16. Okay, so page 16. So it's asking us to find the value of c such that each expression is a perfect squared trinomial. I'm so excited. All right, got to control my excitement and actually teach. Okay, so to find c, we have to look for the patterns that we've had when we did multiplication. So I know that if I take 18 and I divide it by 2, that will give me 9. And then if I take the 9 and I square it, that'll give me the 81. I know that c has to equal 81 because my perfect square trinomial had to be x plus 9, x plus 9. So what I'm doing is I'm taking the linear term, which is the middle term, and I'm dividing it by 2 so that I can find half of it. And I know that that was what was in the parentheses. So this one would have been x plus 11 squared. So in order to find out what's missing, I have to do 11 squared, which is 121. Here's another day that knowing your perfect squares is going to be helpful. Again, if you don't, you're not going to do poorly. You're just going to be a little bit slower. That's all. So it is a good idea to learn your perfect squares. Okay? All right. So negative 30 divided by 2 equals negative 15. Negative 15 squared is equal to 225. Negative 5 divided by 2 is negative 2.5. It is a decimal, and we will all survive. That's equal to 6.25. That's a decimal right there, 6.25. Okay, negative 8 divided by 2 is equal to negative 4, and negative 4 squared is 16, so c equals 16. So if I put all of those values, notice they're all perfect squares. Technically, 6.25 is in a perfect square, but it's 625 is, okay? So it makes all of those perfect square trinomials. Yay! All right. So perfect square trinomials, that's going to be a major focus of this lesson. All right. So this is called completing the square. Not a good picture of a square, but you get my idea. All right. So for completing the square, what you're trying to do is you're trying to make one side of your quadratic equation a perfect square trinomial. And if that's not the way it already is, like if I look at this one, this first example, this right here, voila, is a perfect square trinomial. So I can factor that like super quick. Okay, so I get x minus 3 squared, the quantity x minus 3 squared. The opposite of squaring is square root. So when I do this square root, I cancel out that square. They're inverses. And that's why I get x minus 3 on the left side. Now, with quadratics, you have to be super careful that you take both the positive and the negative square root of 25, which is why it says plus or minus 5. And then the opposite of subtracting 3 is adding 3. So I actually get this. I get 3 plus 5, which gives me the 8. And I get 3 minus 5, which gives me the negative 2. All quadratics will have 2 answers, and this one does. This method is called completing the square. It's totally cool. You're actually going to like this, okay? Promise. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to force this to be a perfect square trinomial. So what I do is x squared plus 10x. I'm going to move the 15 to the other side, but I'm going to leave a blank there. When I move it, it becomes negative 15. So now I'm doing just what I did in my warm-up. I'm saying to myself, if this was a perfect square trinomial, what would be on that blank? So I'm doing 10 divided by 2, which equals 5, and then 5 squared is 25. So I'm going to put a 25 there. But whatever you do to one side, you do to the other. So I add 25 to the other side. Okay, that's what keeps the balance of the equations balance. Okay, all right, so now I'm going to factor this. I get x plus 5 squared, and negative 15 plus 25 is 10. So now the opposite of squaring is square root. So I do the square root of that, and I get x plus 5 is equal to plus or minus the square root of 10. All right, square root of 10, irrational. Not a big deal. You just leave it as an irrational number. You don't try to mess with it. There's no context, so there's no rounding. You just leave it alone. All right? So the opposite of adding 5 is subtracting 5. I know that looks a little weird, but I'll fix it. So that gives me x is equal to negative 5 plus or minus square root of 10. Okay? There are two answers there. There's negative 5 plus the square root of 10, and there's negative 5 minus the square root of 10. Those are two answers. Okay? So now the next page, this is just all typed instructions on what we did. So you can read that page at your leisure, look back at it, kind of use it as a guide to help you do some of these. I'm going to walk you through some of these. I don't think we'll do all of them together, but I will post an answer key for you. Okay? All right. So the first thing we want to do is force the quadratic to be a perfect square trinomial. Psst. P-S-T. Psst. Perfect square trinomial. Okay? Oh, can't believe we're not doing this together, but that's okay. We're kind of together. All right. So I'm going to move that negative 3 to the other side. I'm going to put a blank here. All right. So half of 2 is 1. 1 squared is 1. So I'm going to put a 1 here. And whatever you do to one side, you do to the other. So now I factor that. I get x plus 1 squared, which is equal to 4. I take the square root of both sides, and that gives me x plus 1 is equal to plus or minus radical 4, or the square root of 4. That's going to be rational. Okay, 4 is a perfect square. The opposite of adding 1 is subtracting 1. So that gives me x is equal to negative 1 plus or minus square root of 4. Okay, so I'm going to do a little bit of calculating over here. I got negative 1 plus 2 because the square root of 4 is 2. That gives me positive 1, so x equals 1. And then I have negative 1 minus 2, so x equals negative 3. Now, what this tells me is that I could have factored this. So when you get rational answers, that means that factoring would have worked. Doesn't mean you have to factor. It just means that you would have been able to factor. All right? All right, next one. So I've got x squared plus 16x plus, I don't know, equals 22. Remember, I'm moving the 22 to the other side, so the opposite of subtracting is adding. Okay, half of 16, that's 8. 8 squared, that's 64. Okay, so I have x plus 8 squared is equal to 86. 22 plus 64 is 86. Okay, so now I'm going to take the square root of both sides, and that gives me x plus 8 is equal to plus or minus square root 86. So x is equal to negative 8 plus or minus the square root of 86. The 8 is negative because I moved it to the other side. The opposite of adding is subtracting. All right, so now that 86. I'm going to leave it like that for today, but if you can simplify them, you should. we're going to review that another day. So I'm not going to touch it for now. And I'm not even thinking about the 86. I'm just going to let it go. Okay. All right. So I'm going to go to the next one, which is going to be k squared minus 8k plus I don't know is equal to 48. I'm always putting a plus sign next to this linear term because anytime you square a number, it's always positive. So that's always going to be a plus, okay? All right, so half of -8, -4. -4 times -4, or -4 squared, is 16. So I add 16 to both sides. Whatever you do to one side, you do to the other. Okay, so that gives me k minus 4 squared is equal to 5864. Liking that 64, right? Think about it. Why would she like a 64? Okay, so I've got square root of both sides. K minus 4 is equal to plus or minus 8. It's 8. The square root of 64 is 8. Okay, so now I get k is equal to 4 plus or minus 8. So I'm going to do a little bit of scrap work over here. 4 plus 8, so k equals 12. 4 minus 8, so k equals -4, which means that I could have factored that. Again, you don't have to do something a specific way. I mean, right now we're learning completing the square, so I'm going to do all of these using completing the square because this is the method I'm practicing. Completing the square. I love this method. Okay, so m squared plus 2m plus I don't know is equal to, all right, that's going to be adding 48, so that's 42. 42 is not a perfect square. Not judging the 42, just saying that it's going to be an irrational answer. All right, so I have to add 1. So that's m plus 1 squared is equal to 43. Square root. So m plus 1 is equal to plus or minus the square root of 43. Therefore, m is equal to -1 plus or minus the square root of 43. And this is called completing the square. Completing the square. Yay! Oh, so exciting. I hope you're enjoying this because it's really kind of a cool method. Remember that perfect square trinomials, they're here to help you. Okay, so I'm not going to finish all of these, but I will start you out by saying x squared plus 8x plus blank equals 56. X squared plus 4x plus blank equals 16. Make sure that once you decide what you're going to put in this blank, that you also put it on the other side. Okay, because you got to keep the balance. All right, keep the balance. So plus blank. Because at first I got excited about that 16, and then I was like, no, wait, you got to add something. All right, so x squared minus 4x plus blank is equal to 30 plus blank. All right, so hopefully this starts you off a little bit. Okay, a squared plus 2a plus blank is equal to 63 plus blank. All right, so complete this page. And if you have questions, you know where to find me. I hope you're having a great time at home, maybe playing some cards, practicing your integer rules or something fun like that. All right, have a great day. Hope to talk to you soon. Talking to you on Zoom. Bye.
Are you having soup? No soup?
I have to scan.
You're not having the soup?
I don't know. I have to scan it.
Oh, okay. Right, I'll make them French toast.
No,
What do you mean?
I don't want that.
No, I know you don't want it. I'm just telling you what I'm doing. Just asking. You're having the fiber one bread? How
Yeah,
many sandwiches do you want?
one.